What a game. The Indiana Fever snap the New York Liberty's undefeated streak.
The word undeniable exists for a reason, and it applies to Caitlin Clark. She is just absolutely undeniable, and her return to the Indiana Fever showed it once again. It felt like a jolt of energy to the WNBA, obviously to the Indiana Fever, who...
The WNBA recently produced the most embarrassing error in the history of sports following Caitlin Clark's injury recovery. They completely destroyed the defense. Liberty, the champion, scored 32 points. Decided she required a drug test in a suit. 11 times this season, it seems the response on the internet was quick, harsh, and the league is now utterly comical. Encountering criticism they didn't anticipate. You believe that the WNBA is genuinely attempting to undermine their own greatest celebrity, or are they simply happen to be this incompetent?
I'm gonna say it. Caitlin Clark is the best basketball player in the world. She's the best basketball player that I have ever seen. She is the difference maker. She is the needle mover. She is the face of basketball right now. It's really hard not to recognize the difference that she makes on the Indiana Fever, a team that was obviously struggling with playmaking, struggling with pacing, struggling with the things that make us want to watch. And she steps into that court, and in the first quarter, she made...
First, let's review the facts, because they sound so silly. Caitlin Clark's made-up return from a 5-game injury absence results in a 32-point loss. She leads the reigning champs team to an unexpected triumph that makes a statement. The unbeaten streak of New York and her. Compensation for this outstanding achievement is the 11th drug test required this season, based on reports for the majority of WNBA players undergo testing 3 times throughout the regular season, and once during the offseason.
And Cunningham is down behind the play, but they've got Caitlin Clark to fire away from 2 players with incredible...
In the WNBA office examined Clark's statistics sheet and reportedly considered 32 points she must be on after missing 5 games. Something unlawful because, of course, being exceptionally talented and preparing for it couldn't possibly explain at basketball. Her performance had to be performance-enhancing substances. At the social media responses were swift, and one user harshly said, "She tested positive for goat blood, which is actually possibly the most precise drug test outcome in the history of athletics." Another stated, "Scott Foster ought to be drug tested while they are engaged in what is likely the biggest sensible recommendation that someone has made about WNBA officiating throughout the season." However, my personal favorite answer came from someone stating that they need to have conducted a DNA test instead to determine whether she's truly human since, let's face it, Clark's actions against the Liberty looked incredible, making 3 3-pointers. 38 seconds to begin the game, which as the video shows abnormal human behavior. The timing of the game, things couldn't be more untrustworthy or humiliating. For the 5 games are missed by league Clark due to against the best, a quad injury returns team in the league, and right away reminds everyone of her role as the spokesperson for her return to professional basketball wasn't only excellent, it was historic. With 17, the Fever set a franchise record. Clark's 3-pointers gave the impression that she never went away, and the whole basketball the world recalled the reason they tuned in to observe her play and the reaction of the league. Let's ensure she isn't defrauding the because to the poor optics, the Titanic appeared to be a small navigational error. You have a player who is your biggest star alone boosted the number of viewers and brought women's rights into the public eye. Basketball, and you handle her as though she's a suspected criminal following her best performance on the drug test in weeks. The WNBA's protocol is allegedly 11 random tests for a single player in a 1 season begins to appear less arbitrary and more akin to intimidating. Other gamers undergo the necessary 3 tests. If they are unlucky, Clark might be 4. Apparently, the premium bundle accompanied by a post-game specimen gathering following outstanding performances.
Keep it down! Go! Yeah! Good job. No, we can.
Whew, good job. Squad needed it. Played Fever way. I love it. More of them.
This is what makes this is even more absurd. Clark's dominance doesn't just appear overnight. That would support the idea that she has been doing this since the deep threes in college. The court vision that doesn't look appears to be supernatural. And this is exactly who she. Anyone who has observed her as a player career is aware of this performance level. Is typical for her when the drug is healthy. Testing following the delivery of this specific game, a statement that the league either won't recognize their own star or not wish to think she's actually this good. Neither explanation is very clear. On the leadership of the WNBA or their capacity to identify and appropriately support for top talent, What transpired opposed to the Liberty wasn't an exception. Was Clark getting back to normal? Of play following their absence due to she informed everyone about the injury. Clark's Fevers are a totally distinct squad from the Fever without her teammates make the offense run more smoothly, improve their appearance, and all of a sudden they are rivalry with the reigning champs.
Congrats on your great performance.
Thanks.
Just want to let you know you have a huge fan base in Hong Kong.
Oh, I appreciate that.
And
hopefully I'll get there one day.
And today, there are 5 Hong Kong fans fly from Hong Kong to
No way. Oh my gosh.
And the hour is 22 hours.
No way. Oh my goodness. Well, I wish I could have met
them. I just want to say
them.
this, including me.
If you know them, tell them thank you for coming. That's incredible.
Yeah, so any plans you will visit Hong Kong with your teams in the future years?
Yeah, maybe we'll head to Hong Kong after the season. I mean, I certainly hope to go to Hong Kong one day. It's incredible to see the type of reach that we can have and how much people love basketball across the globe. So that's really cool. So if you know them, tell them I say hello and thanks for coming as well.
Yeah, thank you. Hope one day to show you around.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is what makes this even more absurd. Clark's dominance doesn't just appear overnight. That would support the idea that she has been doing this since the deep threes in college. The court vision that doesn't look appears to be supernatural. And this is exactly who anyone who has observed her as a player career is aware of this performance level. Is typical for her when the drug is healthy. Testing following the delivery of this specific game a statement that the league either won't recognize their own star or not wish to think she's actually this good. Neither explanation is very clear. On the leadership of the WNBA or their capacity to identify and appropriately support for top talent. What transpired opposed to the Liberty wasn't an exception. Was Clark getting back to normal? Of play following their absence due to she informed everyone about the injury. Clark's Fevers are a totally distinct squad from the Fever without her teammates make the offense run more smoothly, improve their appearance, and all of a sudden they are rivalry with the reigning champs. The level of social media mocking peaked. Levels, with many indicating that the WNBA is deliberately attempting to undermine their own when your biggest star delivers, the product a performance worthy of celebration league-wide, and your answer is required drug tests that you've essentially misinterpreted how to construct and promote a league of professional sports. The analogy to other sports becomes into when Steph Curry hits 9. It's inevitable. In an NBA game, three-pointers aren't they sell the highlights and drug test him. When an NFL player throws for 400 yards, the league honors the performance that only occurs in the WNBA. It seems that brilliance requires a chemical examination of one especially harsh remark seen that Clark has undergone more testing. More times than she has been effectively promoted. By the league that strikes to the core of the continuous identity crisis of the WNBA possess a gift that spans generations and brings unparalleled interest in their product, and they react with distrust instead of than a celebration. The timing of this revelation makes Clark's situation even worse. Appointment television was the game that returned. Fans specifically watched to see how after the injury layoff, she would perform. The performance was better than expected. Produced instances of virality and produced precisely the sort of encouraging attention the WNBA is in dire need, and we discover that she later underwent a drug test. The league's policy regarding drug testing may be formally arbitrary, yet the visual propose a more focused suggestion when the same player is consistently chosen for testing, particularly following noteworthy performances. It begins to appear less like random selection and similar persistent abuse of their largest. Ironically, star Clark's success ought to be the largest celebration in the WNBA. This player attracts large audiences, boosts viewership and boosts sales of items, and draws attention to major sports to basketball for ladies rather than focusing their marketing approach on her skills, which they seem to be developing their drug testing regimen around her games. The fans' remarks regarding this circumstance demonstrate the harm that this strategy causes to the standing of the league. When you're the audience is making fun of the way you handle, you've lost control of your biggest celebrity. The story when making jokes about drugs testing receives greater participation than clips from the real game that you. There is a significant misalignment in priorities. Social media users weren't shy about highlighting the ridiculous remarks, included everything from jokes about testing for basketball prowess to recommendations that perhaps the league ought to try other players to see why they are unable to compete. Clark's performance level. The ingenuity in making fun of this choice has been unrelentingly persistent in the larger. This is made considerably more troublesome by the situation. The WNBA is currently experiencing collective negotiating and bargaining in an effort to raise player compensation and enhance conditions of labor. When stories start to surface about the treatment of your biggest star, it doesn't contribute to excessive drug testing. Precisely present the league in a favorable light on how players are treated. The timing of these examinations also increases inquiries regarding the league's. Clark's decision-making process recognized after outstanding performances, giving the appearance that success raises suspicion, which is precisely the Antithesis of what you wish to say players now or in the future stars. The entertainment value of the responses on social media have been amazing. Users have transformed this into a comedic treasure trove of jokes that range from evaluating for unadulterated basketball ability to recommendations that Clark ought to insist on view the test results of other players for contrasting the inventiveness of the mocking. This choice demonstrates how clearly troublesome it seems to the outside observers. One user captured flawlessly the circumstance by observing that Clark receives more often than most drug test players receive valuable playing time. That observation emphasizes both the her examination was excessive and the widespread mediocrity that characterizes a large portion of the skill level of the league. The league's treatment of this circumstance is a basic misconception on how to take advantage of top talent when you have a player with the ability to transform the course of your sport, which you safeguard and encourage them. Don't put them through to ongoing testing that suggests their in some ways success is illegitimate. The testing disclosure also calls into question the league's endeavors to establish credibility. If you're at your finest around competitive balance, the player is tested continuously because they seem to be performing too well. What does that imply about being natural? The general degree of competitiveness it implies that one player is either that everyone else is cheating or much worse than they ought to be. The response from fans has been amazing, condemning the league's strategy, with numerous people are pointing out that this handling of Clark is a reflection of larger WNBA problems. Decision-making and leadership. When everyone in the audience is making fun of a league choice, it's most likely time to rethink your strategy. The most detrimental element of the whole circumstance is what gives the WNBA an amateur appearance. In contrast to other professional sports, major sports leagues recognize that the performances of superstars generate interest and income. They honor excellence instead of examining. The WNBA's strategy implies that they either don't comprehend this fundamental idea or consciously decide to disregard it. After reading the comments and reactions show that fans are aware of this. As an example of more significant issues, given the way the league handles the drug testing turns into a representation of the WNBA's not being able to manage and promote their greatest strengths. Even in informal observers might perceive the ridiculousness of the circumstances. The league faces a significant they are facing a public relations challenge. Let's look at the statistics. The ridiculousness of this frequency: 11 testing Clark's drug tests in a single season, in contrast to the 3-point league norm. Tests indicate that she is being examined at almost 4 times the other players' rate. Random sampling isn't what that is. Focused inquiry masquerading as regular procedure. The mathematical likelihood that one player will be chosen at random, chosen 11 times, while others receive 3 tests, is so astronomically high, low that it is insulting to call it a coincidence. Fundamental intelligence. The performance that prompted this most recent test was precisely how much people paid to see Clark come back from harm, seeming as though she didn't attend any of her practice sessions. Her shooting form was flawless. Her vision was surgical, and the decision-making process was perfect. How professional basketball looks at its best, such as, and the league's answer was to doubt its validity. What makes this even more shameful is the background of Clark spent 5 days recovering from her accident. Games with a quad strain on the sidelines, collaborating with medical personnel and trainers to guarantee she brought the concept back securely. That she improved her recuperation in some way, or performance by use of unlawful using drugs, is not only offensive to her work ethic, it's demeaning to everyone. Medical staff that looked after her. Social media rehabilitation commentary has changed since the first unbelief to blatant derision of the league. Users of management are producing intricate quips about the drugs Clark might be utilizing. Performance-boosting basketball skill became popular. Expression that someone said she's been consuming excessive amounts of court vision enhances the inventiveness of mocking. This ruling demonstrates how widely it seems foolish to anyone with comparing healthy brain cells to other players becomes unavoidable and cruel as Clark undergoes 11 tests for being too skilled compared to other players. Difficulty making simple shots without any chemical analysis. Regardless of the inference is that achievement is suspicious, but mediocrity is flawless naturally. The opposite is true. Send a professional sports league a note. Ought to be sending. The foreign viewpoint adds an additional layer of Clark's humiliation about fans traveling from Hong Kong to observe her play, demonstrating the worldwide reach of her attraction is strong currently among folks around the world. Readers can learn how the league, their favorite players drug testing for nothing, says I'm too talented. Professional sports leagues such as considering excellence suspiciously. The timing of this discovery just after a resumption of dominance performance produces the worst images rather than celebratory headlines. When Clark returns, we hear stories about procedures for drug testing and possible harassment. The league was able to. Their week's most encouraging tale became a nightmare for public relations. This creates a risky precedent for the future of the league is extraordinary. Performance starts on its own. More drug testing? What message? Does that encourage aspiring young players? Work hard and progress if you want to achieve top ranks. Your abilities and win games. but anticipate being handled like a prospective cheater if you get too much success with the fan. Investing in Clark goes beyond simply people's basketball performance. Purchased jerseys, went to games, and developed into WNBA fans in particular because of her influence on the game when the league considers her to be a possible criminal for supplying precisely the type of the performance that brought her fame. Feels like the emotional connection has been betrayed. And monetary outlay for the coaching. The viewpoint of the staff about this matter must be amazing. To consider attempting to oversee a group when your top player receives tested for drugs each time she has a fantastic game. The psychological effects of that constant observation may have an impact on team dynamics and performance. However, in further way that this strategy backfires on the league is interested in the company.
Clark's implications are astounding. Presence raises TV ratings. Money from ticket sales and merchandising.
When your primary source of income receives exposed to a lot of drug tests, in essence, you're looking into your personal achievement. The league is compensating consultants millions of dollars to determine how to expand their viewership, while also pestering the player who resolved that on their own. Issue with the way this was covered by the media. The situation has been widely regarded as critical. Of the league's sports strategy, reporters who typically refrain from taking both sides have publicly questioned the reasoning and impartiality of Clark's testing at this frequency at which even impartial observers are criticizing the way you make decisions. The public relations war is lost for you. The player association should fully be incensed at the way they are being treated. Most well-known participant in the league can put Clark through a lot of tests. What is to stop them from being too good? From focusing on other players for any the reason they produce? This establishes a precedent that compromises the rights of players and honor around the league.
This is made worse by the historical setting.
Women's athletics have always had difficulties because regard and acknowledgement. When the WNBA finds a player at last who brings public awareness and legitimacy to their product, their reaction is to wonder if such achievement is valid. It's self-defeating at the competitive balance at the greatest level. An argument breaks down when examined if Clark's supremacy was fabricated. Teams would be requesting inquiries, rather than rival coaches and athletes recognize her ability while expressing annoyance at having to defend against it. Not suspicious at all. That's elite's professional recognition, the power to rally the fan base surrounding Clark in reaction to this therapy that pits us against the mindset of the league and its followers. Control. When your target audience is actively opposing your administrative choices, that you essentially misinterpreted your position as an organization that provides sports entertainment. The story of the drug test has taken center stage. Actual conversation about basketball, which depicts the league's total failure. Priority rather than examining Clark's performance and her growth as a professional in their second year, or the group's enhanced chemistry that we are discussing. Protocols for the league's specimen collection has succeeded in turning its brightest celebrity into a victim as opposed to a festivity. This circumstance aptly captures the WNBA's continuous battle for success. They long to be mainstream, interest and more income. However, when they receive precisely what they have been, it is suspicious to ask for their reaction. An inquiry. It's similar to complaining regarding hunger and thereafter asking how well the food is prepared. When someone presents the WNBA somehow gives you a 5-star lunch. Successfully transformed their biggest talents into victorious reappearance in public. A nightmare for relationships when excellence causes drug tests rather than party. You realize something's the league leadership is gravely flawed.
How do you feel about this entire thing? Drop. Hit the like button with your thoughts below.
If you believe that Clark is owed an apologies, and sign up for more sports self-written drama.